I will be going to the browser, so just right out of here should be okay. Well, good morning, everyone. How many of you have already seen me talk a bit about AZMet? I recognize some faces. Because if everybody has, we can skip ahead to some of the newer bits, but there are some people here don't recognize me. We'll quickly go through some bits and pieces of AZMet, where we're at today, and where we're heading. The rest of you who have seen this, feel free to check out for a while. Take a break, walk around outside. With AZMet, some of you probably remember Paul Brown. He retired at the beginning of 2020. If you did not know that already, he of course created the network back in the late 80s, starting at that point in time. His recent retirement, along with the recent retirement of Bruce Russell, who worked on the database end of things for a few decades as well, actually, prompted me, newly coming into this AZMet program manager position, not quite a year ago. So fairly new. Along with me, we have really excellent field technician, experts, and many experiences of using scientific equipment in the field. I'll mention Scott here in a little bit. Even though I'm new to AZMet, I'm not new to Cooperative Extension. I've been working with them about 6-7 years now in a different capacity in climate and geospatial sciences. And way back when, mid-late 90s, I did put in a couple of years of work at the now non-existent Citrus Ag Center out by Waddell, if any of you remember that. Let's get started. Some of you I know, again, you've already been through this, so don't worry. But for those of you who don't know me yet, have you even heard of AZMet? And do you use it? I see some heads nodding. Which stations are you currently focusing on, more or less? Maricopa? I could have guessed that for you. Certainly. Sir? Enroll, okay. Very good. Anybody else? Coolidge? Karen, thank you. Buckeye, I recognize that gentleman in the back. I think we met back in January. North Yuba Valley. Okay. Terrific. Are there any particular pieces of the data stream from AZMet that you're using? Any particular information products? Karen Govai has spoken extensively about heat stress and heat units for cotton, for example. Evapotranspiration seems to be a pretty common answer for this type of question. Are people using other pieces of the data world within AZMet? Hourly temperatures. Wind speeds. Okay. We are. We'll get to that in a little bit. And thanks for that question. Keep people around and listening here for a bit to get to that part of what we'll be talking about today. But one of the things when I was considering taking this position that drew me to it was the real richness in resources that AZMet has had. 28 stations at present, some of those since 1987. 8 alone in Maricopa County. Granted, 3 of those are within Metro Phoenix. Each of these stations, we're measuring air temperature, humidity. That is the pointer to work. This little part of the station here at 1.5 meters. Precipitation, soil temperature, soil radiation here at 2 meters on every station. And then wind direction and speed. That's up here at about 3 meters height on each station. Okay, so those are all the measured variables coming in to the AZMet database. From those, based on previous research and application, as many of you know, calculation of such things as chill hours, cotton heat stress, dew point, evapotranspiration, heat units in various forms, as well as vapor pressure. Also part of the resources world within AZMet, real-time observations. Those are displayed online, updated roughly about every 15 minutes. There also is a database storing all the historical data, some of which again goes back to the late 80s, of both hourly and daily values of both the measured variables that we went through, as well as the calculated or derived variables that I mentioned as well. And historically, there have been a variety of summaries and reports, daily, weekly, monthly perspectives on those. Another thing that really drew me to the position was having Scott White. I mentioned him earlier. He's always out, not always out in the field, but very often out in the field, making sure that each of these stations is operating as optimally and reliably as possible. He's going out every quarter to each individual station and checking the sensors, running them against a mobile unit of sensors and making sure that they are giving us the values that we expect them to give us. Additionally, each quarter, he's going out and doing cleaning inspection visits. In this type of environment, you probably wouldn't be surprised that once in a while, Gabe will get to a station and see that one of the tripod legs was run over by a tractor. That throws things off kilter. He has to adjust for that, fix the station, get it back again at that optimal operating level. There's some, yes, right. And what he's trying to do is make sure that, this is level, basically. I don't know how that actually affects the sensors, if it does, but he's making sure that the station is properly installed and operating. He's also going through preventative sensor replacement. Right now, he's going through a 5-year battery exchange at the individual stations. They are solar powered. We have a rechargeable battery as backup. Those are being replaced before they give out on us. He's also going through and replacing a lot of the wind speed sensors. They operate with bearings, and again, in such an environment, dust, cobwebs get into those sensors and can degrade basically the information that they're giving us, and we don't want that. Another part of what we do, and this is where more of my work comes in, is on the data quality and access. With everything coming in from the stations, really focused on making sure that what goes into the database is quality data. We're both manual and automated evaluation of measurements. We're looking to fine-tune that, as I'll mention again here in a few slides as we move forward. Recently, within the past year, we've also gone to a new database system. And some of the database jargon there may not be of interest, but the point here is that it is now moving into a much more modern design and technology that is going to allow us to more easily facilitate the information. Whether you're a data user, you download it directly yourself, or if you're expecting to see online some of the application information. In this case here, we're looking at cotton heat stress. We'll get a live demo of this in just a little bit. And it's really to facilitate, again, the access to the data itself, or be able to create new ways of accessing it that are very efficient, very direct to the problems that you're looking to solve and for which you need this information to help solve them. All right, so in the coming months, you always wish you could finish these types of things sooner than what you really can. And the more I dig into these things, the more I realize that there are a lot of moving parts within AZMet. And we're trying to bring them all up to speed as we're continuing this really network-wide overall modernization project at the present time. Scott's going to be completing the upgrades to station communications and power supplies. Verizon, for example, is changing its cellular network to only operate on 4G and 5G levels. This is something that's out of my expertise, but well within Scott's, fortunately. We're having to go through and upgrade all the antenna systems, for example, to make sure that we are more optimally accessing the cellular network and shipping the data from the stations back to the machines, either on campus or elsewhere remotely. We're also going to, as I mentioned earlier, going to continue to refine the data storage, access, and review system. We're now up to an hourly update as far as data going into the database, so daily. We are also going to be upgrading on this topic. We're also going to be upgrading the real-time system that currently exists, making that more robust and having that. It's a separate system now, but we're going to be ushering it into the collective new system and have everything under a single environment, data-wise. I just handed off the blueprints for a new website for AZMet to the College of Agriculture's Communication and Cyber Technology group. They're the ones helping with a lot of the database building on the back end that I've been talking a lot about so far. They're also going to be helping tie that database to the new AZMet website. And have, again, this information that you are looking for directly accessible, efficiently accessible online on both mobile-friendly devices as well as on the desktop. We're also going to be working on developing new online resources as the project continues. It's really a case of trying to get caught up on what traditionally or historically has been provided and adapt that to the new database system, as well as any new resources that haven't been done prior that we can now do with the new system in place. The point I want to make here is that I think a lot of value that AZMet can provide is going to be in building something, whether that is a really robust and optimal station network, along with the high quality data going into an easily accessible database, all the way to some of the online products, some prototypes here to look at just a minute. That's where I think the value of AZMet lies. And we're excited to be working on something and building that, again, through this overall network, overall modernization process. Okay, here's where things get really risky and we go to live demos. I bet you already that one thing is not going to work. So let me see what we can do here. Oops, that was the wrong button. Let's see. Ivan, I have already done something I shouldn't have done. So I need to go back to the PowerPoint, please. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Had a admin guide or
Let's go to screen.
You would like to fill out pictures.
That's what you were.
Okay. Right.
So
Thank you.
you want to,
Just click on the URLs. I think.
which one?
Let's go to the top one. Yeah, let's try that. Okay, so I have to look there and not here. Okay.
It won't go this way, but
It says Arizona EDU, is that why? There we go, okay. All right. And then if we could zoom, reduce the zoom on that so we don't do that. Okay.
that's enough.
Even more. Coming in really big. Okay. That's good, right there. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we are working on a new website. We are trying to, again, the point here of the website isn't to have a bunch of data that's looking for a problem. We want to take your problems, other people's problems who use AZMet data to help solve them, and make it as easily accessible, findable, intuitively through this website. And so we're working on that. Current conditions, we're just going across the menu bar there from left to right. Current conditions, that's going to be the new real-time system. We do have the legacy version in place and operating now, and it may be filling into that slot in the near future. But again, we're going to be moving into a more modern version of the real-time system. With the past data, that is going to be the historical database. So if you wanted to find data from yesterday or from 1987 for some of the stations, you could. And we're going to be at that part of the website, providing instructions on how to access the data. And not that we would expect everybody to be fishing around the database. There are some who want to do that, but we'll also have areas in both the current conditions and the past data where it's very specific, station-specific information. So if you're only interested in the Buckeye station, your Roll station, it'll be directly under both of those. You'll be able to find that information real quickly. And again, a lot of that historical legacy application product information is going to be within those areas as well. The application areas, you just hit that link.
Second.
The third on the menu bar, up at the top. Perfect. This is where we're going to be having some of the applied information. Cotton, I know I've talked with a number of you, perhaps already on this here in the room or folks elsewhere. But we're also going to be having other areas where that information is something that people value, they look for. That's going to be available too. And again, getting to a specific station information isn't going to be just one route. If you're going through the real-time data, you can get to the station information. If you're looking for station information with Cotton application information, that's going to be built in as well. So you can get to the information you want different ways, but it's not going to be roundabout paths to get there. It's going to be pretty direct and linear, such that, again, you're not spending your time trying to figure out the website. You're spending your time getting the information that you're looking for. Yes? That at present is related to a City of Phoenix project that I guess goes back a number of years, in which they estimate turf water use for either average quality or high quality. High quality probably being upper end golf course level. And that information is provided on a daily basis. That's tied into the 3D Metro Phoenix stations that I mentioned earlier, as well as Basin. They actually have a station in one of their city parks. They're interested in monitoring irrigation use on turf there. So that one, our contract with City of Phoenix ends this August. We're going to see if they re-up on that. If they do, we'll see what additional information can be built into that and kind of revive that application area within AZMet. We're really running on what's already been built and just trying to keep it going at this point. Okay, and then finally under the about, if you're interested in the type of sensors that are at the individual stations, some of the station metadata, as far as how long the records there go back. Did the station start in 1987, or was it 1992, or was it 2008? That type of information is all going to be in the about section, as well as descriptions of the data quality checks and things of that nature that, again, really are going to express the quality of data that are going into the AZMet database and that we're trying to reach every day. Part of that might even be tied into some more formal not arrangements, but descriptions of how to handle a network of meteorological stations that the American Association of State Climatologists is working on right now. We're there. We're in that arena already. And so just formalizing that and getting their stamp approval, again, it's just an extra feather in our cap, so to speak, as far as expressing the quality of the information that's coming into the AZMet database, all the numbers, as well as what's coming out in terms of the application. Okay.
The heat stress.
Yeah, let's do heat stress. Oh, this is heat units. Yeah, let's do heat units. We'll do this top one. I know that third link is giving us trouble. That is something that's out of our control that we're looking into. It has to do with, you can imagine being around Phoenix, you probably readily identify with this congestion between where we're trying to access the information and the remote server that is operating things on the back end. So yeah, if we could just zoom out again, please, that'd be terrific. So some of you I know remember and really relied on the weekly content advisories that Paul, Peter, I know you were often always involved with those as well, that came out in the past years. They showed, for example, on the front page, the charts of the heat units in relation to planting date, or when you start accumulating heat units, and in the context of the growth stages of carbon. We are trying to automate that process. Not that automation is everything. It's going to be a combination of automation and me doing things. But at the same time, with the new technology of the database, it's going to allow us to create things like this. And this is very much a prototype. Don't even have the AZMet logo on here. My focus was really to, as quickly as possible, get the numbers accessible on the screen for people to look at. If you want to, please, I'm going to go to the station name and just drop down to Maricopa. Scroll down there in alphabetical order. There we are.
I cannot see it.
Oh, it's kind of the second one down. There you are. And then the accumulation start date. So if you remember that top graph in those weekly cotton advisories, cotton advisory went out every week for an individual station, and they had accumulation start dates, either the 15th or the 1st of the month, starting from March 15th and going to June 1st. We simply replicated that information here on the left side with the drop-down menus. And every day, as the daily data come in, if you were to go to this tomorrow, the information in the top graph, which is 2022, would be a day further. In this case, thank you. And if you want, well, these are.
Do you want to change that accumulation start date to maybe April 15th? And I mean, that's the average planting date in
Sure.
County.
Let's go.
Let's see how the black line changes.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
So thank you, Karen. All right, so I'll step back. I tend to jump into these things because I've stared at them for so many hours. I'll step back and describe what you're all looking at for perhaps the first time. Horizontal axis here on the graphs, starting in March, going through October 1st. So that's our time during the growing season. On the vertical axis, we have cumulative heat units, and that's the 8655 heat unit model that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Bottom graph is from last year, 2021. That is the first year that we've had in full the new database system, pulling data in and storing it. So that's easily put onto the screen. The top graph is 2022, and you'll notice, of course, that, whoops, oh, there we are. We're just here on May 31st.
Between Pinhead Square and First Flower.
Between Pinhead Square and First Flower, that's right. And those are the green bands here in each of the graphs. So if you were to take the cursor, and I know it's a bit difficult, that's okay. If you were to take the cursor and hover over any of the data lines in this particular example, it would read out the date you're hovering over. Oh, thanks, I appreciate that. And the number of heat units in this case, as well as the accumulation start date or the planting date, I think, is also how to think of that, which is same information that's over here. But again, And then you can just run the cursor along, and you can see at each of the individual dates what the cumulative heat unit value is. Now, we're trying to take, again, some of the legacy products and put them into the new system and keep them as familiar as possible. We're also trying to upgrade them, given the nature of the new database technology. In this case, it's daily updates to the data instead of the weekly advisories that used to come up in previous years. So one is not left to interpret between the weekly advisory from a week ago and this one if they wanted to know the heat units halfway through the past week. So that's some of the value here, I think, that the new database system is going to offer us is more frequency in terms of updating the data. And looking at this, one of the things I also wanted to mention is that we're trying to, again, we saw that with the website, it's going to be both desktop and mobile device friendly. I'm trying my best as I spin these applications up to make them as accessible as possible on mobile devices. To be honest, it's really hard. There's a lot of information that goes into this, even when we try to boil it down to the essentials. And personally, I do not like to look at this on a screen that is, smartphone size or even a tablet size. That may just be me, but I think it gets harder to view this information the smaller the screen gets. I was in communication with someone last week. What I'm going to be trying to do is, and this may be somewhat helpful for that issue I just described with the smartphone screen size, is take this information and instead of putting it in a graphical form like this, we're going to try to mimic daily automated updates to a report form. So much like the previous cotton advisories where everything is static and it just lists out the numbers and such, but it's in, say, a PDF file that if you were to open it on your phone, you can zoom into a particular section of that report page and get the information. This, I know, can cause trouble on those smaller screens, so we're trying to adapt providing this information with the technology of the devices that everybody uses. It's diverse, and again, desktops, the smartphones, and I don't know if anybody's using a smartwatch to try to get to this stuff, but that would be really tough to do. But also considering how people like to intake the information that's on the screen or related to the screen, whether it's in graphical form or whether it's in report form. We're really trying to cover all these spaces to make sure that this information, which is valuable as I'm learning in this new position, is accessible to as many people as possible. That's the goal.
I have to print that page to put it in my reports. Is there something at the top there that lets me print that page?
Yes, and that's, again,
It doesn't matter, I just wonder.
there is, and you have to forgive me again, this is very much a prototype at this stage. But one can zoom in on the graphs using this tool in the toolbar, and I think it's, I want to see the camera icon that allows you to export the graph image as a static image that you can plug in the reports with. So, yes, and options like that, we're going to try our best to make them available as well. Again, we're trying to cast as wide a net possible in terms of accessibility and making sure this information reaches as many as possible. Yes, sir.
So far, how is talk about the highs and the lows. So what they would see with the case is like the sensitive days highs come down 70. That days the best highs and 70. So that's not where it starts. out with Aspen. Oh, well, I got sick people every day. Well, somewhat. Anyway, I got serious. I got serious. You guys are paying a lot higher fee. Probably by the time you get it pretty you'll be going hot. Yeah.
So we can leave it in rough form, and then best time, no. We'll try to dial this in and polish the product as much as possible. Yeah. Yes. Well, as you were describing that, one thing that did come to mind is that a lot of the legacy products, whether it's just a simple table of numbers of highs and lows of the last week for individual stations, all of that information is still online, and it will continue. My focus. Yes, and as the years go by, the new technologies come, and that's why I'm focusing on this particular bit of information here today.
First, I see how I would need to tell that the field I was in was at the proper maturity. Now I can see it perfectly. Jeremy. Yeah, well, that's your.
So just kind of tie that up. We're trying to cover a lot of bases in terms of the users and the technologies they use to access the information. Whether it's those that are more in the nuts and bolts of the data, or if it's those that want more of the summary report. All that, the different styles of information and presenting that information. We're trying to cover all of those in 2022. So that's our goal. That type of information on a station by station basis, that will be on the old legacy website right now, and it will be part of the new website as well. We're building towards that, yes. We'll have the hourly summaries, the daily summaries, and again, we're trying to wrap in the real-time system as well. That's right. That's right. And that's where your predictive power comes in. Start with that. I know we're running long on time. We have a similar web application like this for cotton heat units. That information is still out and available, even though the weekly advisories are not coming up any longer. Links to these web applications are on the legacy website. If you go into the cotton part of the legacy website, up towards the top of the page, where you used to find the links to the legacy reports, or to the legacy weekly advisories, access to this information is going to be there. For now, again, it's a bridge for us as we get to the new website. We didn't want to invest a lot of time and energy building out new facets of the old website, the legacy website. So bear with us. Thanks for your patience as we do this major construction effort. Hopefully, we're going to get something that works even better for you in terms of accessing this information. I think that's probably good for me. Thank you all for the discussion.